Bruce Carr was the American pilot shot down behind enemy lines who did the unthinkable. He stole a German fighter plane and flew himself home. Back in November 1944, in occupied Czechoslovakia, Carr didn't just escape. With zero training and zero tolerance for giving up, he hijacked one of the Luftwaffe's most advanced warplanes and flew it straight out from under the Nazis' noses. Picture this. You're flying a P-51 Mustang at 8,000 feet over Nazi territory when black oil sprays across your windscreen. The engine screams as metal shreds inside it. You've got 90 seconds left before that propeller becomes a 400-pound anchor dragging you down. Bail out and you're stranded 200 miles behind German lines with a twisted ankle, 7 bullets in your leg, and freezing November nights closing in. Downed pilots had just a 23% chance of survival. Most surrendered. Not Bruce Carr. He walked straight toward the enemy airfield he'd just bombed. 4 days later, he'd flown off in a stolen FW-190. How did he pull it off? While others saw dead ends, Carr looked at German instruments he couldn't read and thought, same physics, different language. Let's rewind to the beginning. Bruce Ward Carr wasn't some mythical Hollywood hero. He was born January 28, 1924 in Union Springs, New York, a quiet farm town. What made him stand out? At 15, in 1939, he learned to fly, not in military school, not with formal training. A local crop duster named Earl handed him the stick of a biplane one summer afternoon. By 16, Carr had more flight hours than most Army Air Forces cadets. When World War II erupted that September, he couldn't know he'd be dogfighting over Berlin in 5 years, but he felt it deep down. Flying wasn't just a hobby anymore. It was life or death. September 3, 1942. 18-year-old Carr enlists, and guess who becomes his flight instructor? Earl, the same crop duster. Seeing Carr's 240 logged hours, Earl pushed him into accelerated training. By August 1943, Carr was a flight officer. By February 1944, he was in England with the 380th Fighter Squadron, strapping into the P-51 Mustang, the finest prop fighter ever built. Let's talk specs, because they saved lives. Range, 1,650 miles with drop tanks. Top speed, 437 mph at 25,000 feet. 6, 50 caliber Brownings spitting 1,880 rounds. Before the Mustang, 8th Air Force bombers bled out, 60 B-17s lost in one mission over Schweinfurt. No escort meant sitting ducks for German interceptors. The Mustang changed everything. It escorted bombers deep into Germany. Germans called them long-nosed bastards. Luftwaffe's pilot corps hemorrhaged faster than they could replace them. Carr named his plane Angel's Playmate, never dreaming he'd soon sit in something far deadlier, a cockpit with German labels and a swastika on the tail. His first combat test came March 8, 1944. Over Germany, Carr spotted a Bf-109. He gave chase at 400 mph, treetop level through forests. He fired, missed, fired again, clipped the German's wing. The pilot panicked, ejected too low, parachute never opened, hit the ground at 60 mph. Carr returned expecting praise. Instead, his commanding officer barked, "That was the most overaggressive flying I've ever seen. You're being transferred." The kill didn't count. The German killed himself escaping. But here's the pattern. Where others saw recklessness, Carr saw opportunity. Where manuals screamed danger, he heard maybe. By May 1944, he'd transferred to the 354th Fighter Group, the pioneer Mustang Group, Europe's first P-51 combat unit. These were elite pilots, and Carr fit right in. June 17 brought his first official kill over Normandy, sharing credit for an FW-190. 2 months later, he became a second lieutenant. September 12, his flight strafed a German airfield, destroying Junkers bombers. Returning, they spotted 30 FW-190s below. Carr dove 3 kills in 3 minutes. When his wingman got hit, Carr escorted him home, forgoing more kills. Silver Star earned. October 29 brought 2 more Bf-109s down. Total kills 7.5. He was an ace. 4 days later, November 2, 1944, at 3:47 p.m., everything went black. Over Czechoslovakia, an 88 flak fragment severed Carr's oil line. Oil pressure hit zero. Merlin engines screaming metal on metal. 30 seconds ago, he'd led that strafing run. Now he was a dead man flying. At 8,000 feet, he bilayed out, landed hard, ankle twisted but not broken, buried the chute. Knew Germans would search his landing site, knew they'd expect him to flee south or west toward Allied lines. So Carr headed north, just 200 yards toward the enemy airfield he'd just attacked. Why? Because logic said they'd search outward from where you land. They wouldn't check the guy walking deeper into hell, and he needed food, water, weapons. That airfield had all three. Day 1, night travel through freezing forests, flight suit useless against the cold, ankle throbbing, no food since breakfast. Day 2, found a stream, water so cold it numbed his throat, hid motionless in a ditch for 2 hours as German patrols passed 200 yards away. Day 3, hunger's brutal physics kicked in. Burning 4,000 calories, just staying warm with zero intake. Body started eating muscle. Carr calculated his odds. Surrender to the Luftwaffe, not the Wehrmacht or SS. Pilots respect pilots, even enemies. Stalag Luft III meant 3 meals, Red Cross packages, boredom but survival. Starving in a forest, not worth it. Tomorrow he'd walk to the main gate with his hands up. Day 4, late afternoon, Carr reached the airfield's edge, a tree line overlooking the perimeter. Through the branches, hangars, fuel trucks, FW-190s, BF-109s. He'd wait for dawn, then surrender. But darkness fell. Something caught his eye. 80 yards out, a revetment hid an FW-190 under camo netting. 2 German mechanics fired up the engine. BMW 801 radial roaring. Pre-flight complete, full tanks. They shut it down, covered the cockpit and walked away. The FW-190 was ready. Carr's brain raced. Never flown German hardware, didn't speak German, couldn't read a single gauge. But physics don't care about labels. Every aircraft has a throttle, stick, rudder, pedals. Here was a fully fueled fighter unguarded. His surrender plan evaporated. He waited until 3 a.m. airfield quiet. Skeleton crew, no eyes on that revetment. He moved 80 yards of open ground. No cover, if spotted, dead. Covered it in 40 seconds, ankles screaming. The FW-190 felt massive. Wingspan 34 feet, length 29 feet, 7,000 pounds empty, nearly a ton heavier than his Mustang. Cockpit sat high behind 13 armored glass. That BMW 801 engine up front, 1,700 horsepower from 14 cylinders. Germans called this thing Virtual Tiger, Butcher Bird. Allies called it Trouble. Carr likely had an FW-190A8, the late war workhorse. 2 13 machine guns up front, 4 20 cannons buried in the wings. Top speed, 408 mph. Range, 500 miles, deadly in skilled hands, but Carr's hands had never touched these controls, only seen them in gun camera footage of explosions. He climbed onto the wing, canopy unlocked, slid it back, dropped in. First shock, everything's in German. Gothic script on every gauge. Second, cramped cockpit, knees jammed against the panel. But throttles on the left, same as American planes. Some things are universal. Sunrise in 4 hours. He used every second, traced wiring, mapped instruments by position, airspeed top left, altimeter top center, fuel selector found, magneto switches checked, now the starter. Critical, P-51 used electric. FW-190, he spotted a T-handle with German text. Starter, he pulled it. Nothing, pushed it. A mechanical whine built, like winding a toy. Let it spin 20 seconds, pulled the handle. BMW 801 coughed, caught, roared to life. Sound like thunder ripping the sky open. Every German on base just woke up. Carr shoved the throttle full forward. Tail lifted instantly. This beast was nose-heavy, dying to fly. Ground crew spilled out of barracks, shouting, pointing guns. 60 mph, 70, hangars rushing toward him. At 90, Carr yanked back on the stick. FW-190 leaped skyward, clearing roofs by inches. Airborne in a stolen German fighter 200 miles behind enemy lines. Now the real work began. Cockpit's a nightmare of unknowns. Landing gear lever, found it, left console, pulled it, satisfying thunk. Gear retracted, plane accelerated, compass, located the gyro, oriented west-southwest toward France. Altitude, climbed to 500 feet, then thought better. At this height, German radar sees you, flak sees you. Fighters see you, dropped to treetop level 50 feet, 280 mph. Czechoslovakian forest blurred green beneath wings. One flinch, one lapse, and he'd cartwheel through trees at 300 mph. But down here, invisible to radar, too low for flak, too fast for ground fire. Fuel gauge read full, 500-mile range. France was 200 away. He had margin. For 45 minutes, Carr flew west. Sun rose behind him. Forests gave way to farmland, then scarred French battlefields. He crossed the front lines, and that's when his own side tried to kill him. Allied AA gunners saw what they expected. German FW-190 screaming low toward friendly positions. Tracers ripped toward him, every .50 cal in eastern France. No radio to ID himself. German markings plastered everywhere, black crosses on wings, swastika on tail. Cars only play, go lower, faster, drop to 20 feet. Hedge hopping, prop wash kicked up road dust. French civilians dived into ditches. US infantry fired rifles blindly overhead. He later said every machine gun in Europe took shots at him during that 30-mile sprint. FW-190 took hits, hearing the ping, feeling the shudder, but German engineering held. Aircraft stayed flying. He recognized his home base, Comté, France, home of the 354th Fighter Group, lined up to land. No time for radio calls, no pattern work. AA batteries were locking on. Then catastrophe. Landing gear wouldn't deploy, pulled lever. Nothing, pumped it, still nothing, looked for emergency release. Didn't know FW-190 used hydraulic pressure, selector valve stuck because he pulled the wrong handle. Below, crews loaded 14 Bofors guns, that German fighter circling their field. They were preparing to blow it off the map. Carr chose a belly landing, slid flaps down, thank God he'd figured that out, and cut throttle, aimed for grass beside the runway. FW-190 sank, 100 feet, 50-20, hit at 90 mph, slid 300 yards, mud and debris clouded the sky, stopped. Alive, MPs swarmed the wreckage, rifles leveled, screaming for the pilot to exit, expecting a German, expecting a POW, canopy slid back. Mud-splattered American climbed out, I'm Captain Carr of this goddamn squadron. Nobody believed him. He'd been missing 4 days, presumed dead or captured, and just barely landed a Nazi fighter on their runway. Colonel George Bickle, commander of the 354th, stepped from a staff car, stared at the wrecked FW-190, the filthy pilot, the confused MPs. Deadpan, where in the hell have you been, and what have you been doing? Words spread like wildfire. The only American in Europe to take off in a P-51 and return in an FW-190. But Carr's war wasn't done. 5 months later, April 2, 1945, near Schweinfurt, Germany, First Lieutenant Carr led 4 P-51s on recon at 15,000 feet, spotted movement above them. A German armada stacked from 18,000 to 25,000 feet, 60 planes, maybe more. Bf-109s and FW-190s mixed, the newest variants, fresh pilots. 4 Mustangs versus 60 Luftwaffe fighters, altitude advantage lost, numbers obliterated. Every manual screamed, disengage, report, survive. Bruce Carr didn't read manuals. Keys radio, engaging. Wingmen didn't hesitate, they knew Carr, knew when he said engaging, he meant business. 4 Mustangs climbed into the German formation. Germans didn't expect it, a suicide charge. Carr exploited chaos, slipped behind a Bf-109, fired, explosion, shifted to an FW-190, 3 seconds of .50 cal fire, rolled inverted, plunged downward. Formation scattered. How many attackers? Where's the fire coming from? Carr moved like a wolf through sheep. 3rd kill, 4th, 5th. In 3 minutes he bagged 5 kills. Wingmen tallied 10 more, 4 Americans, 15 German planes destroyed. 0 losses, ammo spent. Carr led them home. 45 surviving Germans scattered like frightened birds. April 9, 1945, Carr promoted to captain, awarded Distinguished Service Cross, the 2nd highest honor after Medal of Honor. Citation read, completely disregarding his personal safety and the enemy's overwhelming numerical superiority, personally destroying 5 enemy aircraft. He became the last ace in a day in Europe. No American matched this before Germany fell. By war's end, he'd flown 172 combat missions, 14 or 15 confirmed aerial kills, records conflict, plus ground strafing victories. He was 21 years old. The war ended. Carr stayed in, joined the Air Force Aerobatic Team, America's first jet demonstration squad, flying F-80 Shooting Stars. Then Korea, 57 combat missions in F-86 Sabres. Commands the 336 Fighter Interceptor Squadron from 1955-1956. Colonel's eagles on his shoulders, the farm kid from New York running a fighter squadron. Then Vietnam. At 44, Carr flew 286 missions in F-100 Super Sabres, same gritty work he'd done 24 years earlier. 3 wars, 3 aircraft generations, 505 total combat missions. Retired in 1973. April 25, 1998, St. Cloud, Florida. Bruce Ward Carr died of prostate cancer, age 74, buried in Arlington National Cemetery. Section 64, grave 6922, among heroes of every American war since the Revolution. Headstone lists rank, Colonel USAF. Decorations, Distinguished Service Cross, Silver Star. Legion of Merit, clusters of Distinguished Flying Crosses and Air Medals, Purple Heart. Wars served, WWII Korea, Vietnam. It doesn't mention the butcher bird he stole, doesn't detail 4 freezing days in Czechoslovakia. No nod to the belly landing, the rifles pointed at his face, Colonel Bickle. Where the hell have you been? Some stories just don't fit on headstones. Documented fact says Carr was an ace with 15 kills, a Silver Star recipient, a DSC winner who charged 60 German planes with 4 Mustangs. All true, all extraordinary. But here's the core nobody talks about. When Carr bilayed out on November 2, 1944, surrender was rational, giving up was safe. Statistics screamed it, 77% capture rate for downed pilots. Carr looked at that German FW-190, a cockpit full of foreign labels, no translation guide, and didn't see an impenetrable puzzle. He saw physics in motion. Universal laws, throttle, stick, rudder, what else can I do? 4 months later, facing 60 enemy fighters, same question. Retreat meant survival. Attack meant probable death. Carr chose attack. Why? Because impossible wasn't a wall, it was a suggestion. The mathematics of war said he'd lose. Bruce Carr recalculated the variables. In 1997, a year before he died, Kermit Weeks, Fantasy of Flight Museum, invited Carr for an air show. Now 73, he arrived in his personal P-51 Mustang, flew over the crowd at 300 knots, 50 feet off the deck, the same knife-edge low pass he used landing that stolen FW-190. Loops, rolls, high G turns that would gray out pilots decades younger, after landing. Someone asked what he was thinking up there. Carr shrugged. Same thing I was always thinking. What's the airplane capable of? What am I capable of? Let's find out. That's the Bruce Carr story, not the stolen fighter, the mindset behind it, not the 15 kills, the calculation before the trigger pull, not 3 wars and 505 missions, the simple question echoing through every impossible choice. What else can I do? December 1944 in Czechoslovakia. Freezing, starving. Ankle throbbing, Carr could have walked to that airfield gate with hands up. Stalag Luftwaffe awaited, a survivable purgatory, but he saw mechanics leave that FW-190 armed, fueled, unguarded, and he thought, what else can I do? Not can I, not should I, just what's next? Physics don't speak German. Engines respond to hands, not language, so he pulled that T-handle starter, felt the thunk of gear retracting. Flew the thing down to the wire because what else could he try? This wasn't about bravery. It was about refusing to stop moving forward. Real courage isn't ignoring fear, it's hearing that engine scream metal on metal, knowing 90 seconds left and focusing only on the next move. Bailout, check canopy lock, parachute deploy, scan terrain, walk north, map patrol routes, start German engine, trace wiring systematically. Every step demanded, what's blocking me? How do I bypass it? We all face our own impossible FW-190s. Maybe it's a project hemorrhaging budget with launch day looming. Maybe it's ethics with no clear playbook. When everything says give up, Carr's ghost asks, what else can you test? What lever haven't you pulled? He didn't have leverage stealing that FW-190, he had ingenuity. Mechanics left tools, used them. Wingman damaged, escorted him home. Enemy lines closing in, flew lower. When AA guns locked on, he didn't outgun them, he outran them at 20 feet. Constraints aren't dead ends. They're data points for creative solutions. Critically, Carr wasn't reckless. When his wingman got hit in September 1944, Carr sacrificed kills to protect him, earned Silver Star for that. Recklessness gets you killed. Calculated audacity, that rewrites statistics. 23% survival odds. Carr bent probability curves because he understood systems deeper than labels. Mechanics serviced that FW-190, he understood engines deeper than language barriers. When manuals said disengage from 60 enemies, Carr knew Luftwaffe formations had blind spots. He attacked the assumption, not just the planes. Remember Carr's landing gear failure, wrong handle, no backup. Instead of circling helplessly, he chose a belly landing. Grass felt soft now, not then. Every impact sent shockwaves up his spine, but he moved the problem, couldn't fix the gear, change the landing surface. That's the Carr mindset. When planner craters, don't mourn it. What's plan Z and how do you jump to it? We glorify the steel, the FW-190 flight, but the real lesson happened before he touched that cockpit. Lying in that ditch on day 2, German boots 200 yards away, Carr didn't dream of escape. He calculated patrol patterns. Waited 2 hours motionless, survived by seeing options. Others missed. That's the toolkit for modern chaos. Sit with discomfort, scan for hidden variables, then act on the insight nobody else sees. Bruce Carr died at 74, but at 73 he was still probing limits, asking what's the airplane capable of. Not nostalgia, not ego, pure iterative curiosity. His last flight wasn't about reliving glory. It was testing the P-51 and himself against new variables: age, gravity, time. He didn't rest on dogfight stats. He kept asking, what's next? We all have FW190 moments. That job rejection, that product flop, that moment when the oil pressure gauge reads 0 and you've got 90 seconds left. Will you bail out mentally, or will you find the canopy release, roll inverted, and drop toward the unknown, not because you're fearless, but because you refuse to stop trying? Bruce Carr's headstone doesn't mention the stolen fighter. Arlington Cemetery doesn't need to. His real monument isn't in Section 64. It's in every person who stares down an impossible cockpit full of foreign labels and thinks, throttle, stick, rudder, what else can I try? Because sometimes the most advanced weapon isn't in the armory, it's in the mind that refuses to see dead ends. It's the pilot who looks at engine failure, enemy territory, and a locked cockpit and asks one question before everything else: what else can I do? That's how you steal a warbird and fly it home. That's how you rewrite the math. And that, more than medals or missions, is how legends are truly made.